seconds left. Still no scoring in the heavyweight matchup. Now Hans goes low. Right leg. Now switches.
Got him.
Honest 2-point takedown right there. Schwarm, number 19 in the country. They roll through here. Watch out. More back points. Schwarm in a bad spot. There are 2 swipes right there. It's another 4. Russo looking good right now against Schwarm.
When I was real little, I never really cut any weight. Just kind of whatever I weighed, I would just show up. It wasn't as intense as some other lower level competitions. Like now, there's kids that are youth age that are cutting weight. They're skipping meals when they're like 6 or 7.
My coaches didn't really know too much about weight cutting, but they really encouraged me to cut weight my sophomore year. And I remember it was terrible. I wasn't cutting too much. It was probably only like 10 or 15. But they were just telling me like the wrong things to do.
What's under scrutiny now is the controversial weight reduction technique called weight cutting, losing pounds quickly and dramatically by sweating out water weight. Athletes often wear rubber suits and exercise to the point of exhaustion to meet weight class restrictions.
I still have a vivid memory of going up to Penn State's rec hall. The rec hall was the big gym, and running on the track and then sitting in the sauna. I remember having a big match, and then my father, who was the Penn State coach, he would only let me cut. He wouldn't let me cut a lot of weight. But it was at that time I was probably cutting down to maybe 85 pounds. So he let me cut a pound, you know what I mean? Which was basically you work out, you sweat a little bit, and you don't have dinner afterwards. And that was our, and it wasn't anything. Certainly wasn't cruel. It was a little uncomfortable, but that was my first foray into weight management.
History always repeats itself. These days are still doing some of the same knuckleheaded stuff that I was doing in high school, like sitting in the back of the bus chewing hot tamales and spitting in a cup thinking you're going to lose a lot of weight. It's like, still there's stupid stuff that goes on. The evolution of weight management as just a paradigm within the sport of amateur wrestling, I think is changing quite a bit, and I'm hoping to make an impact, and that's a big driving force for my career.
You're gonna have caloric restriction, but then most of the guys then do like excessive exercise in combination with, not eating that much. And so, and then that excessive exercise would be typically like with a rubber suit, right? So they're just trying to drop a significant quantity of water weight. So they're not drinking, not eating, and exercising vigorously with a suit on. And at the same time, they're like spitting in a cup, right? Trying to drop saliva. And I wouldn't doubt if there was some forms of diuretics, like over-the-counter diuretics involved.
So the NCAA was faced with a crisis in 1997 when 3 wrestlers passed away from dangerous weight cutting tactics.
Federal health officials are now investigating the 3rd death of a college wrestler in a month. The latest, a University of Michigan student. The others from schools in Wisconsin and North Carolina. As CBS's Troy Roberts reports, all were training intensively and bent on losing a lot of weight fast.
The night before his match, Reese collapsed and died while training in his college gym after hours of excessive exercise. Mother says he had to lose 18 pounds to qualify first, and he had to do it in just 4 days.
He hadn't loved wrestling so much. If he didn't have that damn desire to wrestle. But he did, and all we could do was stand behind him. But who would have ever thought that it would have gone this far?
We have experts in the area of wrestling, both from the coach side, the medical side, the administrative side, to try to do a good self-evaluation on the sport and see what needs to be done.
They convened essentially like a task force, and they established some parameters for safe weight management, weight cutting, and participation in the sport of NCAA wrestling. They added 7 pounds to every weight class to allow the new rules to not kind of make people unable to make a weight class.
In the old days, you would cut the weight, and when I first came to Cornell, we would weigh in on a Thursday night for Friday and Saturday matches. So it makes sense. If you can cut a lot of weight and you can put back 10 pounds of fluid or 15 pounds of fluid, you're going to be bigger and stronger. So so we had some mishaps. We had tragedies where kids literally died from cutting weight.
Mike Russo definitely this year cutting to 125 was like one of the worst things I've ever witnessed.
So in the beginning of the year we do certifications, and that's just to see where you're at with your weight. And I was planning on wrestling 133. A week or two before our first competition, the coaches are like, hey, like a spot opened up at 25, like this is your opportunity, like if you want to take it, you can. I remember, because I had to start working out the next day, I was like 152. I really didn't know how well I was going to compete, you know, like I haven't competed in over a year. My training, like I was working out all summer, but my training really wasn't there, so like this was really like a test for me.
In the old days, they would cut down to 125 to be bigger and stronger. Now you might have a kid cut a weight because that's the only way he makes the team. That's really the difference in Mike Russo's case. We didn't have a 25 pounder, so we made that cut. Mike would come in every single morning. He would run, he would wrestle, and then he went out. I was working with Clint Wattenberg on his diet. I'm sure he could cut out all the carbs. It was a protein diet, and he had to be perfect.
I was pressed for time, like I said. I only had like 2 weeks, so I hopped on a ketosis diet, it's called, and I started the diet by first fasting for that weekend, just so my body would get used to burning fats rather than carbs. And then from there, I hopped on like a really like calorie restricted diet of around like 1,200 calories, and then I was burning around like 3,000 calories a day.
You know, it made sense with the drasticness of his weight descent needs. That was probably the most effective thing that he could have done, and the reason being is it turns him into a fat burner. He's got our biggest source of energy in our body is fat, and if we can utilize that as our primary energy source, you can go for days.
And the second he got off that diet, his weight bumped way back up. It wasn't a natural weight, but he was able to maintain it and be successful because he was completely dedicated and disciplined, and he had an extreme workout regimen, so he could do it in a healthy manner. And in Mike's case, he fell off the wagon. He fell off the healthy wagon, and his weight zoomed right back up, and he wasn't. And then we just said, all right, that's not going to happen because he wasn't able to maintain that type of discipline. And very few kids are. Now, while he was doing it, he was incredibly successful because he was doing it right, and he was ranked in the top 10 in the country.
So I made weight a handful of times, but it started to get tougher after every weigh-in. Like a few weigh-ins were good, but the problem was putting the weight on after weigh-in. So if I could only put on like 15 pounds, like trying to stay around that 140 range, it was like good for me, you know, like I'm like, okay, like I'm comfortable here. But there were a few tournaments where I hit like 150, and then every time after that, I'd hit 150 again after weigh-ins.
The sign that somebody's either cutting weight incorrectly or in a too extreme way is that it gets harder, not easier. Sometimes you'll talk to the rest of the team, or much of the rest of the team, who wasn't as extreme in their weight descent demands, and it got easier all season long.
The NCAA is investigating the training methods for wrestlers, one step toward changing the controversial culture around the sport. But stopping a driven athlete from pushing his body to the limit may be the greater challenge.
For a lot of wrestlers, college is their last opportunity to really show out and prove their skills. And weight management is definitely a huge factor in that, because you can work out as hard as you want, but if you're not competing at your best weight, you're not going to reach your maximum potential.
I think it's like something that's so extreme as it might see as an outsider to guys that actually do it week in and week out. It's more of like a lifestyle change so that it's in control. Like for instance, I just made weight last weekend at a tournament, and like there was weeks preparation of like dieting leading up to it to make it easier on myself. But I think it's like the love of the sport, and it's just something that comes with the sport. And if you want to be successful with the sport, I guess competing at what you weigh, like your optimal weight is like how you're going to be the most successful. So I think it just like comes with the territory of the sport, and I think guys have grown to love that. So.